What if I told you that pirates had their own secret language? A hidden code of words, gestures, and symbols that outsiders could never crack. A secret society hiding in plain sight on the open ocean. When a pirate said, "No prey, no pay," that wasn't just a saying. That was a contract, a law, spoken in a tongue that only they understood. Welcome to the secret language of pirates, and by the end of this, you'll be fluent. We think of pirates as wild, lawless criminals, but underneath all that chaos was something surprising: structure, order. A deeply organized society with its own rules, its own slang, and its own codes. And if you didn't know the language, you didn't survive long enough to learn it. Pirate language didn't come from nowhere. It was born at the crossroads of the world, in port cities like Nassau, Tortuga, and Port Royal, where sailors from England, Spain, West Africa, the Caribbean, and the Far East all crashed into each other. Languages blended. Slang was born out of necessity. You needed words that outsiders couldn't decode, but that every man on your crew understood instantly. English sailors brought nautical terms. Africans brought rhythm and expression. The Spanish and Portuguese brought navigational vocabulary. And out of that collision came something entirely new. A dialect forged by desperation, freedom, and survival. Let's start with the basics. When a pirate said "avast," he wasn't just being dramatic. Avast meant stop immediately. It was a command, a shout across the wind that demanded instant obedience. Belay that meant cancel the order, and aye aye wasn't a casual agreement. It was a formal military acknowledgement that you had heard, understood, and would carry out the command. Landlubber, one of the most famous pirate insults, literally meant someone who lubbed or clung to the land, a weakling who couldn't handle the sea. To be called a landlubber by a pirate crew was about as low as it got. Here's where it gets fascinating. Pirates didn't just have slang, they had written codes. Called the Articles of Agreement, or Pirate Articles, these were legal contracts that every crew member signed before a voyage. And they were written in very specific language designed to be ironclad. No prey, no pay meant the crew received nothing unless they captured a ship. Every man shall obey civil command, established a chain of authority. These weren't suggestions, they were laws, and breaking them had consequences: flogging, marooning, or death. Different pirate captains had different articles. Bartholomew Roberts, one of the most successful pirates in history, had 11 specific rules in his code. No gambling, lights out by 8, every man gets a vote. It reads almost like a workplace policy document, written in the careful, deliberate language of men who knew exactly what they were doing. The Jolly Roger, that skull and crossbones, wasn't just a symbol, it was a message. A linguistic statement delivered in fabric and dye. And what that flag said depended entirely on what was on it. A plain black flag meant, "Surrender now and we'll spare your lives." A red flag, what pirates called the bloody flag, or Jolly Rouge in French, meant no quarter given, no mercy. Fight back and every man dies. Different pirates had different flags, each one a personalized message. Blackbeard's flag showed a skeleton holding an hourglass, meaning your time is running out. Bartholomew Roberts' flag showed him standing on 2 skulls. Edward Lowe's flag was entirely red. These weren't decorations, they were statements, written in a visual language every sailor on the ocean could read. Beyond words and flags, pirates had physical codes. Gestures and signals passed between ships and crew members that outsiders couldn't detect. A hand raised at a certain angle near a port could signal that a ship was carrying treasure. A lantern hung on the left side of a dock after dark meant the coast was clear for smugglers. In crowded taverns, where soldiers and naval officers might be drinking at the very next table, pirates communicated in half sentences, slang, and gestures. The phrase, "the devil to pay," didn't refer to Satan. It was a nautical term, meaning a nearly impossible seam to seal on a ship's hull, used in code to mean a situation with no good way out. Even the phrase "son of a gun" has pirate roots. Women who were secretly aboard ships would give birth between cannons. These children had no recorded father, listed only as "son of a gun," a coded acknowledgement of a secret. Pirates also had coded navigational language, charts and maps written in ways that only trusted crew members could interpret. Hidden symbols marked safe harbors. Skull symbols on a map didn't always mean danger. Sometimes they marked buried caches of supplies. X marked not treasure, but coordinates, a navigational landmark understood only by those with the key. Captains' logs were often written in deliberate obscurity, mixing truth with fiction so that if the log was captured, naval officers couldn't extract real information. Positions were recorded in code. Cargo was listed under false names. Every piece of written communication was a puzzle deliberately designed to mislead the wrong reader. Perhaps the most powerful part of pirate language was its role in building identity. To speak like a pirate was to declare yourself a member of the Brotherhood, a term used across crews and oceans to mean those who lived outside the law by choice. It created instant solidarity. When a new recruit joined a crew, they were before the mast, a physical term meaning they slept in the forward hull, below the officers. As they proved themselves, they moved metaphorically and physically toward the stern, closer to command. Language tracked every step of that journey. Going on the account meant choosing the pirate life. Not being pressed into it, choosing it. That phrase carried pride. It meant you'd done the math, weighed the risks, and signed your name to the articles. You were in. And the language you spoke from that moment forward was proof. Here's what's remarkable. We still speak pirate every single day, and we don't even realize it. Skyscraper was originally a nautical term for the highest sail on a ship. Overwhelmed comes from being capsized, whelmed by a wave. Dunno comes from sailor shorthand. Even hooky, as in playing hooky, is believed to come from sailors who would hook and run cargo illegally at port. The word buccaneer comes from the French boucanier, hunters who smoked meat on wooden frames called boucans in the Caribbean. Language absorbed into pirate culture, culture absorbed into language, and then absorbed into ours. Pirates were not just criminals on ships. They were linguists, coders, and communicators, operating a secret information network across thousands of miles of open ocean, centuries before the internet. The golden age of piracy lasted roughly from 1680 to 1730. In those 50 years, pirates built one of the most sophisticated underground communication systems the world had ever seen. And they built it entirely out of language. Words, symbols, flags, gestures, codes. Naval officers had cannons and fleets and the authority of kings behind them. But pirates had something those officers never could. A shared language that no outsider could break. A secret code passed from ship to ship, port to port, mouth to ear, across the entire Atlantic world. So, the next time someone calls you a landlubber, know that you've just been insulted in a language 400 years old. A language built by outcasts, revolutionaries, and some of the most cunning communicators who ever sailed the sea. And now, so do you.